think y'all went live, right?
Mama Fluke, do you mind getting me the wind chime? It's behind the podium. Always feel like that's the sound of the ancestors coming in. Appreciate you. All right. I hope everybody's doing fantastic on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday. Slowly allowing the ancestors to join us as we get the tone set, as we get the day set, as we come together in this beautiful celebration of the Circle of Mayat by TNAT Wellness Center on Harford Rd, where you can get all your Pan-African needs. Look, I'm coined that. All right. All right. On this beautiful Sunday, I thank you all for coming out. I thank you all for participating and showing up online, watching this video at a later time. Us being together, us celebrating together this beautiful life that we're living in the Circle of Mayat. I want to bring in the ancestors with a drum call just to get things started, get things warmed up, get the energy flowing. I am Brother Fur or Ndugu Fur. This is Brother Parish or Ndugu Parish. And I think we're going to start this drum call. Ready? All right. I'm feeling the ancestors coming in the door and through the vents and through the windows and through the cracks of the walls. Look, I'm feeling them. They're in the buildings. How y'all doing? And let's honor these ancestors now with libations. Mama Faluke, if you can come forward, and Brother Parish, and whoever may participate. We're all participating to some extent. Yeah.
Testing. Okay, I like to start by reciting the open Njia. I walk in my eye with balance, truth, and divine alignment. I rise discipline. I heal with courage, and I give my gifts to the community. Spirit rise in me. Divine ancestors walk with me. Divine guide me.
Ashe, 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 oh.
At this time, you can call out the names of those ancestors that we know or that we know and that are unwillingly known, not known to us, that have assisted us in our journey in freedom and peace. I'd like to start off by calling Imhotep.
Ashe. Ashe. Frederick Douglass. Ashe. Ashe. Ashe.
Hepshetsu.
Ashe. John Henry Clark.
Ashe.
Ashe.
George Washington Carver.
Dr. Francis Cresswell.
Sojourner Truth.
Ashe.
Dr. Patricia Newton.
Ashe. Ashe. Harriet Tubman. Ashe. Ashe. Benjamin Banneker. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Marcus Garvey.
Ashe. And at this time, we can call out those ancestors that have impacted and influenced our personal lives, our family members. I'll just start off by calling George Edmonds.
Ashe.
Preston
Lena Leonard White.
Paul
Ashe.
and William Johnson.
Ashe.
Matt
Eddie Evans.
Huntington.
Ashe.
Wesley White.
Ashe.
Charles McAdoo.
Ashe.
A.K.
Ashe.
Brother
Wanda
Chuck.
Green. Ashe.
Ashe. Robert White.
Ashe.
Ashe. Avon Atkinson. Ashe. Esmeralda Fur. Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe. Ashe. Ashe.
Ashe. Oh. Beautiful job, Brother Parrish. Beautiful job. All right. Yeah, and the circle started right. I feel the energy. I appreciate everyone. I want to open the circle for a moment. If there's anything anyone would like to share, this would be a great opportunity to do so. Is there any gifts that you'd like to bring to the community?
Okay.
Barigani, everybody.
Mhm.
We usually
Gigi
end
Chocolate.
our circle with Harambe, and so I thought it would be nice to also start it with Harambe. And
Okay.
I think this song was by Rita Marley. It's either her or Judy Mowat. Red, black, green, and gold. Africans at the control. They tried to keep us down, scattered us all around to diverse parts of the earth, hoping we'd waste away. But no matter what they do, no matter what they say, all of Jaja's children should go Harambe, Harambe.
Harambe.
You hear what I say, Harambe. Can a leopard change his spots? No, not Jaja children, their skin. They say blood is thicker than water. Love will take us further. So don't be afraid. So Jaja say, no matter what they do, no matter what they say, let all the Charges children go Harambe, Harambe. You hear what I say, Harambe, Harambe. The higher ones say, Harambe. What color is the rainbow? Check it next time it shows. It's the way we should be, all together in harmony, all living in the same stream, and walking up the same beat. So no matter what they do, no matter what they say, let all of Jaja's children go Harambe, Harambe. You hear what I say, Harambe, Harambe. The higher ones say, Harambe. Harambe means working together and pulling together for one love, peace, harmony, and power.
That's it.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm smiling. I'm feeling it in my in like I'm feeling it from the inside out. Harambe, Harambe. All right. Would anyone else like to share their gifts with the community? Well, I'd like to share my gifts with the community. There's this beautiful song by Nina Simone, Hey, Oh, Baltimore. And I was listening to it the other day and I was like, man, I really want to do this song. So I'm going to karaoke it. All right. I'm going to pull the words up. But if you feel in the energy, and you like to pull up the lyrics and you like to join in, however you feel you want to join in, this is a collective circle. So we're just going to figure this out together. All right. beat up little seagull on a marble stair. Trying to find the ocean, looking everywhere. Hard times in the city, hard times in the city, and a hard time by the sea. Ain't nowhere to run now, ain't nowhere that's free. Oh, Baltimore, ain't it hard just to live? Oh, Baltimore, ain't it hard just to live? Just to live. Just to live. Hooker on the corner, waiting on the train. Drunk lying on the sidewalk, sleeping in the rain. People hide their faces, and they hide their eyes. 'Cause the city's dying, and they don't know why. Oh, Baltimore, ain't it hard just to live? Oh, Baltimore, ain't it hard just to live? Just to live.
Just to live, just to live.
All together. Oh, Baltimore, ain't it hard just to live? Oh, Baltimore, ain't it hard just to live? Just to live. Thank you, 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 thank you. That was pretty good karaoke, right? That was pretty good karaoke. I think that was pretty good karaoke. Look, I'm feeling the energy. I'm feeling the energy. I feel like the ancestors is putting their arms over their shoulders like, look, we got this, we got this. Yes, yes, yes.
It's time to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
We are the people.
Yes, yes.
We can do it. We don't have to leave Baltimore as it was found in that song, but just each one teach one.
Yes, yes.
And be committed.
So I think this is a good segue, you know,
Yes.
because as we're doing our part to teach one for our community, I think the circle and these discussions kind of help move that needle forward. So with no further ado, I would like to give a warm welcome to Minister Ausar.
I walk in my yacht with balanced truth and divine alignment. I rise in discipline. I heal with courage. I give my gifts to the community. Ancestors, walk with me. Spirit, rise in me. Divine, guide me. We walk in my yacht with balanced truth and divine alignment. Ancestors, walk with all of us. Ashe?
Ashe.
So I think elders may have permission to speak. Ashe. So we're going into the Book of Ptahhotep section, or the same Book of Ptahhotep. I just want to say section, I guess is kind of something that sounds, all the sections, let's say that. And there's a verse there that I think that perhaps can continuously guide this conversation. And that would be the first verse out of the book, which is, be not arrogant because of your knowledge. Take counsel with the ignorant as well as the wise. The limits of knowledge in any field have never been set, and no one has ever reached them. Wisdom is rarer than emeralds, yet it is found among the women who gather at the grindstone. So we kind of covered that in some other verses, but I think that's a very essential, foundational type of verse. We discussed some things last week, and we spoke more about this idea of from an African-centered perspective, that there's no such thing as something not being spiritual. To us, spiritual has to be the supernatural. In fact, I say my spirituality is natural. I put a line through the super and say it's natural, because things don't have to be super, they can just be. But lots of times for us to really deal with things, we have to make it more super than what it truly is. Like I often say, people say, I got something called something special. It's called organic food. And organic food is just how food is supposed to be in the first place. You might as well change the food and say, I got some genetically modified food. That's a better way of putting it. Just say food and genetically modified food. I think that would be a clearer, more concise, and more a better way of putting it. because there's nothing special about that which is in its normal state. In spirituality, again, I maintain that it is that too. I would argue that too many of us have thought that things have to be supernatural, and we have not put down what we picked up in childhood. Because these things comfort us. That's fine. It's fine to pick up things to comfort because we all have imaginations. But the problem is when you, as Dr. Clark says, look, you can believe in anything. Just choose what you believe. And Dr. Henry Gregory says, look, if we don't evaluate our beliefs have us. He said, from time to time, we don't evaluate our beliefs have us rather than us having them. I say that Black people, African people, we don't need help in what we call the ethereal realm. We're experts at that. There's no group of people out here that helps us, that can outshine us in the ethereal. We on the earthly thing, we struggle with that a bit. But to me, from an African-centered perspective, it says that which is spiritual must manifest in material. So to me, we say, how do we judge? We judge your spiritual development by the way you live your life. We judge your spiritual development how you engage with others. It is easy to do so because how you treat other people, do you live by your highest ideals, which also is called your value system? How are you doing? So again, spiritual has to be real in the African-centered perspective. See, the West, everything is simply material. In the East, not Africa, the East, everything has to be detached and it has to be ethereal. But as African people, we understand it is a both and there's no separation between that which is spiritual and that which is material. In fact, the words themselves confuse us. Because there's not a thing out here that is not a part of the greater thing, which we call spirituality or spiritual, or whatever we want to call, whatever words we want to use. God, the universe, Mother, Father, God, Mother Nature, what have you, whatever you want to use. These are descriptive terms to try to define something that it can't capture. The thing is, we believe that we're capturing it. Hence, it gives us, it has us not living like this. It has us living very differently. It has us not living by what the book says, and it says, be not arrogant because of your knowledge. When we are operating from these systems to have us believing that we have special authoritative powers than other people, we become very arrogant. When we are operating in systems to have us believing that this is the all, we are operating from a very arrogant lens. When you're operating in the West, and the West tells you that people ought to know everything, we're operating in arrogance and ignorance. And it's hard to have to live up to a farce. It's causing us all types of trauma. It's causing us all types of self-confidence issues because we believe that other people have something that we don't have, and it's just not true. It's fiction. And they know that it's fiction. We know it's fiction, but we have the mind is so powerful, it can create a thing, it can make something that you believe, it has you believing that a thing is true. You've lied to yourself enough to believe the lie. How many people did that before? You lied to yourself so much that you believe the lie. The mind can believe anything. So what I'm saying is, I know you can think you can prove some things to me, but I'm not. Look, I just know that anything you want to believe can be true to you. So anything you want to believe can be true as long as you try hard enough.
I like what you're talking about now because I was watching The Residents. I just love Malcolm Jamal. But there was a crooked executive, and she was telling a doctor, and this is exactly what you're talking about, and how it impacts Africans. She told him, you know, I can make this situation go away because the truth is whatever you make it to be, not the truth that exists universally, but the truth, as you said, what we create in our own heads, or a fact, really, because facts can change, but truth doesn't. Am I right or wrong? Or is it either or?
I'm trying to follow you.
Okay. What I heard you say is we can create things in our own head that may or may not be true. Most of the time when we're creating something without solid information is what we've created and not necessarily the truth. Well, in this particular segment of the show that I watched, the oppressor, who was an executive, a hospital executive, told a doctor who was about to get in trouble, but he wanted to operate in integrity.
Mm-hmm.
But she was giving him a choice. And the choice was not to operate in integrity. And she said, you don't have to tell the truth. What you can tell is what you want, and then that becomes the truth.
Mm.
So I'm looking at that with what we deal with in our own heads, compounded by people who actually think like this and operate like this every day. We see that right now in the so-called government of the United States. No, what I'm going to say is the truth. What you've been believing all these decades, that's not real. What I am saying now is the truth.
Because that's the truth.
It's the truth. How?
Which principle is it Coogee chocolate? Mama Donna, can you break down Coogee chocolate for us? Hold up with the mic.
Yeah. To define ourselves.
Yeah, that's on, but let me do that.
To define ourselves, name ourselves, and speak for ourselves instead of being defined, named, spoken for by others.
Ashe.
Ashe.
So that is the truth. But the reality is we all can define for ourselves. If this government decides that it wants to define a thing to be truth in this era, they will make it truth. But do you have to subscribe to it? In fact, subscribing to it becomes very, very problematic. And that's why I say Coogee chocolate, because it's about defining for ourselves. But the reality is we quite don't understand that anybody can, in any group of people, have that right to define for themselves. See, when we look at the principles of Kwanzaa, or rather the Nguzo Saba, we look at it as being, we don't really study it. We think it's just something we do around Christmas time. I'm saying Christmas time. You know, the Black Christmas. No, I meant Christmas time. The Black Christmas. No, but we just think of it like that. But the principle itself says we have the power to define for ourselves. In fact, we must define for ourselves. Because nothing that is socially constructed is in of itself the only way of looking at a thing. And the way that we have been taught to look at things is what is responsible for the outcomes we see in our lives. The things that we subscribe to are responsible for the outcomes we see in our lives. It's the way that we conceptualize and believe and hold on to things that have us suffering in this society. the way things have been laid out, because the way things been laid out has been laid out in the way to say, stay in your place. And you don't even know it. You just say, this is how things are. And then when someone comes with an African-centered or African-centered perspective, we say, what are you doing? You're creating something. What you're doing was created.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we have bought into the reality of something that has been socially constructed and agreed upon without you being knowledgeable that that is what has happened. So that's why when we say Kuji Chagalia, we have to understand that there is something very deep about that concept. It's not a shallow thing. So when we say name things a certain way, do things a certain way, dress a certain way, talk a certain way, wear your hair a certain way, it is you in that way. You are defining the reality for you and your people. We will run away from something that we create because we say that's something some black people made up, but we'll continuously operate in what Europeans have made up. And then we'll find ways to say, well, it was African first, but look, with the rendition you have ain't African. And it's so much trauma with that reinterpretation of an African thing that you probably need to get away from it because it has your mind bound to this Eurocentric society. We do all types of things to hold on to things that don't help us. And it's understandable. And even when we say it's African, we still bring in Eurocentric ideas, concepts, realities, philosophies, and ways of treating one another. If it ain't about helping us come together, if it ain't about helping us connect, if it ain't about helping us to have stronger families, stronger relationships on various levels, to me, we need to change it. Because we are struggling in our relationships. And the society has created the social construct or created the atmosphere. It has created the conditions. It has created the conditions that keep us at war with one another. So with that, Mama, you got something?
Well, from what you were just talking about, made me think about the fact that, right now, especially a lot of people are expatriating and going to Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sad to hear that a lot of them are going over there and they've asked permission and somebody said it was granted to build Little America to these little communities like, okay, we have, most cities have a little Chinatown or a little Germantown and stuff like over here. And they're going over to Ghana wanting to have their own little sections instead of trying to mold in, merge into and become part of the African society. They want to have their little America over there. And also from what you were saying a while ago, I thought about the fact that I know a lot of Jamaicans say, life is beautiful if you make it so.
And I understand the reason why we do that. Because the reality is, it's not only us going over there with colonized minds, we're meeting colonized minds when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it more comfortable, right?
Yeah.
I won't go off into that diatribe, but we have to fight that, right? We have to resist that. But I understand how whenever you're the one doing the work, or when you're doing work, you always ask the question, what are they doing? As if nobody else is doing the work. That happens on the individual level. When I meet with couples, the very thing is, the most often what is said is, they gotta do the work. I'm doing my work. They gotta do the work too. And I say, no, they don't. They don't have to do the work. They can be comfortable right where they are. You don't want to make a decision on what you have to do if they don't do the work. Go ahead. I hear this, Mac. Oh, you want me?
I feel singled out.
Oh, I thought you had something.
Oh, I'm exposed. All right. So there's a couple different things. So I'm hearing two different sides of this, right?
Mhm.
Because as it pertains to beliefs, and there's imposed beliefs, like as Mama Fluke mentioned, where someone who has authoritative power can impose a belief or will to say this is the truth or not the truth, and people accept that or not. And then there's like adopted beliefs, and I think we spoke about both of those kind of things where, you know, people create their own culture and rituals. And then I think that to some extent, there might be something in between imposed and then adopted. It's just like the culture that you have is created by the patterns and the habits that you create on a regular basis, if you choose intentionally to create that culture or not. So if you wake up every day unintentional, you do whatever, you eat whatever, you dress however, you go wherever, like if you create a pattern of that, that's the culture that you live in, and that's like the pattern in which you live. And I think a part of what we're having a conversation about also is being intentional about the adoption of things, opposed to just kind of letting it happen free form. So there's like 3 points I had in there, and I was just processing as I'm listening.
Yeah, if you are free flowing in this society, you're not free flowing. There's no, if you think that you're doing something in this society that is just individually you're not doing anything new. You are doing more of the status quo. This society has you believing that you can haphazardly live in it and move about, even sometimes in the name of spirit, and you don't know that what that does is support the very status quo that is already existing. And that's why I appreciate Dr. Mama Murumba Nee's definition of spiritual. One of her ideas of spirituality, she says that spirituality is, to her, is African sovereignty. That's very clear. She says, very clear. It's about African sovereignty. It's not even about Black power. And it's not about something that does not bring about something tangible. Because I maintain, deal with the ethereal so much, it's okay to deal with that. Because we have to deal with it whether or not we want to or not. Because we don't know everything, although we claim to know everything, or we try to figure out everything. Again, go back to the baffling of being. Not knowing, to me, is very tapped into what is spiritual. The fact that you have to know things that you'll never know, and you act like you know things that you'll never know, it, to me, is lying to yourself. But African sovereignty means that whatever it takes for us to be a people who practice those ideas of Kujichagulia on all levels. It's so scary to even do simple things when we think about it, because we are so afraid about what other people will think of us. If I say something about Africa, or if I say something about being Black, even if I say something about something that goes, you can't even be Black around Black people. You can't go to school around Black people and not worry about being too Black. So again, it requires us to resist. In resistance, it's full of spirit. It's full of, as Dr. Gregory talks about, being your authentic self and letting the chips fall where they will. When you're operating out of fear, as y'all know, you're not operating in at the highest level that you can be. When you're allowing your fears to dictate how you move, you don't even feel good about yourself. You feel safer, but you don't feel good. There's nothing that is changed on a significant level when you're operating, you're allowing your fears to control you. Mama Faluke said that we will, when she responded to the Mama Nina Simone song, she said change will come because we will be the ones bringing about that change.
Ashe.
But that requires us to push past those things that we are afraid of. That requires us to challenge and interrogate those beliefs that we know we're holding on to because of fear. So again, back into the Book of Ptahhotep, I'm going to read what I call the primary verse here again, and then we'll move on. Be not arrogant because of your knowledge. Take counsel with the ignorant as well as with the wise. For the limits of knowledge in any field have never been set, and no one has ever reached them. Wisdom is rarer than emeralds, and yet it is found among the women who gather at the grindstone. So in this verse in the Book of Ptahhotep, it says, this is verse 5, page 18. It says, if you are a man who leads, a man who controls affairs of many, then seek the most perfect way of performing your responsibility so that your conduct will be timeless. Great is my yacht. It is everlasting. My yacht has been unchained since the time of Ausar. To create obstacles to the following of laws is to open a way to a condition of violence. The transgressor of laws is punished, although the greedy person overlooks this. Baseness may obtain riches, yet crime never lands its wares on the shore. In the end, only my yacht lasts. Man says, my yacht is my father's ground. Let me go into the Hosea and see if this is the same verse here. It might be a little clearer. If you are a leader and command many, strive for excellence in all you do, so that no fault can be found in your character. For my yacht, the way of truth, justice, and righteousness is great. Its value is lasting, and it has remained unequaled and unchanged since the time of its creator. It lies as a plain path before even the ignorant, and those who violate its laws are punished. Although wickedness may gain wealth, wrongdoing has never brought its wares to a safe port. In the end, it is my yacht, the way of truth, justice, and righteousness that endures and enables the upright to say, it is the legacy of my father and mother.
Ashe.
Any thoughts?
The first statement that you read, it brought me back to Carter G. Woodson. And if we had, back in those times when some of us were getting educated, some of us were advancing, if we had only listened not only to the so-called educated, but also the uneducated, where would we be? Because everybody has something to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think intensely about that, because we have allowed systems to segregate us so much,
Mm-hmm.
and to label us when we could have been so much further ahead than where we are now. But we kind of embrace those things because, as you said earlier, we thought that we were better because we did this, and this, or had this, and that. whatever that may be.
Mm.
And so a lot of responsibility is on us because the oppressor cannot do any more than what we have consciously allowed him or her to do.
Mm. You know what I pulled from that passage? If you're leading men, or if you are a leader, to lead with integrity, not to take shortcuts, to lead with a level of consistency, and also, I think I said integrity, but really, like, it speaks to not doing wrong for the sake of getting over, because it doesn't like pay in the long run. That's kind of what I heard in that part. And really, it wasn't said this way, but honor your ancestors. I think of like the mother and the father, the Mayat is my father's ground is what it says here, but then in the other interpretation said mother and father, like really think about those who came before you and the people who you're leading, as well as who you're representing as you're conducting yourself. That's kind of what I'm pulling from that passage.
Hello.
Hello.
I have to name that I'm feeling very nervous, and you were saying to push past fear, so my voice trembles. I'm working through this. I think both of the verses that you shared, they're connected in this idea of how we move as individuals and how we're moving as a people. And at the end, you brought back something saying Maya as the way of truth. And when you initially brought up truth, then we were talking about what can be true for you versus true for somebody else. It made me think about the difference between a relative or personal truth and an absolute or collective truth. And so when you brought in self-determination and you defined it, the way you were speaking of it, it kind of sounded like you were blending together self-determination as people determining themselves as a collective, but also as an individual determining themselves. And so part of what I was wondering was if there's a term for collective determination, because when I hear self-determination, my mind goes to the individual. But then I also, like, as it was coming together, one question I was asking was, again, like, at what point are we moving as a collective body and not just from our own lens of truth and our own lens of reality? And so, but I think that the way you were speaking of it, it made me think, if we don't see ourselves as separable from the collective ever, if we're always a part of that body, and thinking about not separating yourself, like, don't be arrogant because, you know, and being with the women grinding at the well, this idea of, to me, that makes me think you're part of them too, like they're part of you. And so I don't know, I guess I'm wondering, are we always part of one body? And do we deceive ourselves by thinking that it's about us, ourself, our truth, and making the separation between what other people are doing and what we're doing? And then the last piece, when you mention African sovereignty, I don't think you said it exactly this way, but this is how I start to hear it. Just this idea of what it takes for us to move as a people. Can you say what is African sovereignty again?
So, in a roundabout way, I would say, in a more direct way, African sovereignty is saying that we will sovereign be not just liberated, but we will be in control as a collective of our own everything. In a sense, like, we will rule over ourselves. We won't have to be subjugated to another group of people. But and when we're talking about people, we're saying like, so you'll see this from a Pan-African perspective, that Africa too will rise again, that Africa will too be a sovereign nation, because Africa itself is not a sovereign nation. So I'm not going to say every other group of people, but many other groups of people, their nations are sovereign. And because their nations are sovereign, there's some power that they wield as a collective that we don't necessarily have as an African people.
So that's the piece. Like, so how do we align ourselves as a collective? And it sounds like it's calling to the way of truth. Like we should align ourselves to some understanding of truth together.
Mm-hmm.
But is there, I don't know, that's where my mind lands, but there's so much more there. I'm wondering about that piece.
I think Mama and Donnie is going to respond to some things.
Well, before I lived here, I lived in Indiana. And we purposely put together a collective. We decided we would be a village. Everybody's children was everybody's children. You know, like my children called the neighbor mama, you know. And we purposely lived in areas where if your child felt like they were on their way home, but you know, something happened, they could run to sister so-and-so's house. You know, they could be safe that way. But we also developed a set of rules and bylaws that we were supposed to live by as a community. It was kind of like a family support group, you might say. You know, we had a food collective, a food cooperative, and we came together for spiritual purpose, on purpose, for spiritual, what we consider spiritual gatherings and everything. And everybody had very similar rituals in their homes, you know, in their homes, and when we would come together as a group. And we were trying to, you know, like support the lifestyle that is encouraged by the Nguzo Saba, the principles, you know, that are celebrated, as he said, at Christmas time. And I could say, you know, I have to agree with that, because it was, from my understanding, first developed to be an option for people that didn't feel the need to celebrate Christmas, but because their children were out and, you know, doing things where they weren't at school, that it was, you know, like an alternative to celebrating Christmas. But anyway, I think that kind of lifestyle, I miss it, you know, because like I said, we had a close connection with each other. We had regular gatherings and meetings, and we developed our own holidays and things like that, you know. And I think that's all part of being sovereign. And I don't know how many people keeping up with TikTok or whatever it is now, but it seems that, you know, Brother Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso, is calling for African sovereignty. He's calling for decolonization of African countries, and trying to bring a union of Africa, which is, you know, that, and because we talk about Africa like it's a nation, but it's 54 nations, it's 54 countries, and each one of those countries has so many different little tribes and all that. You know, that's a hard thing when I think about it, to try to bring that all together as one, you know. But I think the way things are moving now, it seems like more and more of the African countries are waking up, if you want to call it, and saying, you know, we don't want to be colonized anymore. We don't want the aid and the deception from Western countries. We don't want to be ruled by them while they run around calling Africa poor and, the people impoverished and all that, but you're taking away all our wealth as you do that. So, but to me, like I said, trying to build a natural lifestyle around things that you are working together and doing together and trying not to be I, but as Rasta say, I and I.
Yeah.
We.
Something that comes up as I'm hearing Mama and Danu as well as Sister Jasmine, like under Pan-Africanism, at least to my understanding, it's a celebration of African culture across the diaspora and across the world. And I think under the umbrella of Pan-Africanism, we can all kind of like have this universal thing that kind of connects us, which is our Africanness. And then I think as it pertains to, because not only are there multiple nations within Africa, but then also within each nation, they might have, how many different churches and how many different community centers. And even in the United States, like there might be groups like this all dispersed across the United States. And like, how do we all come together? And I think what is happening in the book on this fifth part, the fifth section, I don't know what the right terminology is, but if there was some common understanding that, all right, everybody's culture is going to be different depending on where they are and how they choose to practice their level of Pan-Africanism. But if we have the baseline of let's do this with integrity across the board, and that's the parameter, like, okay, that may be different, but they're doing it with integrity, we're doing it with integrity, we're both in our Pan-Africanism, we can come together. And I think that that is displayed when there's like Pan-African conferences, and everybody may come with their different colors and representations and acronyms, but there's like a common understanding that we're in the struggle together. So I was just kind of tying it all together. I like that whole leading part with integrity because I think that ties in very well.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm liking what we're working toward here. When I visualize a cell in the body, and the cell has different components, and without one of those components, the cell doesn't function properly. And somehow or another, over the last several decades, the cell kind of went off to itself. And we call that cancer when they're multiplying overly rapidly and they get out of control.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as the cell is contained and functioning the way it's supposed to, the rest of the body will function accordingly. But when that cell has one little major thing wrong with it, it affects the entire body. And so as we see younger people, I got to get the bag and I got to do this, it's a separate concept. It doesn't include all the time everyone else, as we did in our generation with just, we didn't have to have anybody tell us, let's start a co-op. We did it in our kitchens. And we still have friends to this day that we can call on that would assist us if they're still here, if they're not ancestors, that would assist us and support what we're trying to do here. But I think we have to get, I don't want to say get back, but get forward to understanding that there's more power when we do things in unity with that foundation of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that when we're working together, it's not that person that's in leadership that's going to benefit. It's all of us that are going to benefit.
Mm-hmm.
All of us are going to benefit from that. And I believe that individualistic mindset has come from Europe. And when we look historically at what they did over in Europe, long before they knew about melanated people, they were fighting and killing each other. They were pedophiles. They were doing all manner of things to step. I know they are, but I'm talking about the root of it, Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. And so what Doc has said earlier in the lecture about us understanding the thinking and how the major culture has affected our thinking, there's a cleansing that we have to do. And he has said on many occasions, healing is painful. But if we're to get to where we want to be, what our desire is for our people, we're going to have to do it.
Absolutely. Do I need to push this? Okay, greetings.
Greetings.
I am so happy to be here. My name is Mama Ursula. I'm loving this conversation about Mayat and what I heard in both pieces, the teachings of the Ptahhotep and also the Hussein, is that Mayat is we are we, and I see you kind of like in Ubuntu. I see myself in other, and so it's not rigid, it's flexible. And as I was listening today, I was thinking about the fact that it's also injected upon us, even how we measure and see our own progress, right? Part of the invasion of the continent of Africa was that somewhere along the way, we started to buy into we all have to move exactly the same, believe exactly the same, or else we cannot face outside invasion. And that's not what happened for millennia. That's what had not happened for a long time. It's what we stopped believing that. And our progress was never linear. It was circular. You know, in like natural healing, for example, right? When you're expelling something, it might be 3 steps forward and a couple of back. I heard you talking, Nia, and I was like, oh, Ibrahim Traore is actually doing that. There are satellite pictures of the green corn crop and other things that are in the Sahel states, which is not just Burkina Faso, but also Niger and Mali. Like places where there's been desert, most definitely my spiritual counsel is letting me know, oh, his ancestors are fully on board. He's like, it already done. It is. There's no, well, if they let us and if the future. And one of the things that we knew before is that what we're doing today is already done tomorrow. We're not waiting for some of the injected measures. I like your word parameters, right? That this is what progress looks like. And I think and feel as we're expelling that, yeah. So what happened when you lived, did you say Cincinnati? Oh, Indiana. Okay. So that's already still going on, right? In our village, that ripple is now. That's how you're here and saying something so profound. It's now. And our young people, while when we have the flexibility to, like we knew eldership before, right? Eldership is great because we knew really in the eldership group, you're learning from the younger ones. So I encounter young people and I always think, how do I share my wisdom, but also be open to your freshness? Because one of the benefits that's happened is some of our young people are not trapped in some of the things that we overthought, right? Like it took me, I'm 61 years young, it took me a long time to get comfortable with myself and greatness and all of the things that I felt like these are the check marks you got to do to move forward. Some of our young people like, I'm already there. Right. So how do we make this synergy that, we need that. And then let me share with you what I have, but I can also follow my wisdom and you have something different. And I think and feel that's not as bleak. I don't even accept any of the measures that they're given of what we're happening right now. And that's what I get from my aunt. What is always was, and what is good for me is good for you. And I'm learning from how you create the we. And like in my personal prayers, I'm always saying, how can I just create the vision of where I want to go and not get in the way of the things I would ask to get there might not be as good as what I got after I listened to this sister and this brother. I was like, you know what, that's even better. So let me not limit that by what I'm thinking and feeling right now. And that's what I hear in the teachings of my aunt.
I see.
That's that pulling wisdom from the grindstone. Just wherever you can get it.
Yeah. Right, those who are doing the work of nourishing and feeding. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, one other thing I wanted to say, I don't know if I made it explicitly clear, is it just came to me. Healing work is spiritual work.
Sure.
So if if it wasn't nothing to be healed, it's called development. But we all are healing something. So, and the reason why I'm saying it because we see things in very compartmentalized ways. So when you see something, when you see healing as something separate, and I'm saying healing, if if you go into a counseling session with someone who doesn't even know anything about anything African-centered, and you are doing some work, there is spiritual work being done.
I sure.
Because again, we think it has to be out here, but really it's here. I'm not saying it's not out here. We all know it's, that's where we stand. But to stay there is not to deal with what's here. Is not to be mindful. Because our suffering is going on here.
Yeah.
And you don't have to suffer if you understand that the spiritual disconnect that we're having is with one another. Because we're fearful of one another. So going back to my dear sister, she asked some great questions. And I think one of her first questions was around self-determination. So just to kind of put this in a frame, self-determination is a collective self, but also in African-centered perspectives, it's like self-love for yourself, but self-love for your community. Your community is a part of a greater universe. So African self, if that makes sense, right? My brother Losh messed with my mic. So when we look at self-determination, it says it exactly says to define for ourselves, name for ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. So that it actually has an S behind all the selves. And then when we look at the rest of the Nguzo Saba, it's very clear. So when you look at things like Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility, right? So it's 7 principles. The first one is Umoja, before Kujichagalea, and that means unity.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to look at all these things in connection. And what I'm saying is, many times, brother, I don't know, this thing is. Many times what happens is, I've been wondering
bring more down.
Why my mic be a little lower. So then we have Ujima, collective work and responsibility. We have Kujichagalea. Let me start from the beginning. Umoja, unity. Kujichagalea, self-determination. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Ujamaa, cooperative economics. Nia, which is purpose. Kuumba, which is creativity. Amani, which is faith. So I think it's essential to understand that everything, even from an African perspective, we see is not like this Western approach where the individual is more important than the collective. And it's not it's not a total Eastern thing where, well, let me not say that. Let me say, well, the idea, the way that from my own studies is that it's both. And so the individual self is essential as the collective self. And hence we have, I think I saw Sister Queen put up there, Ubuntu. Somebody saw it somewhere. And so when we say I am because we are, and we are because I am. So again, that goes back to those. Again, we say things as I heard Bobby Motep and some other people speak to it. Like sometimes we look at things in very simplistic ways. And Ubuntu is, again, I think captures everything that we're talking about. It is about those relationships. It's about as Mama Faluke spoke about, it's about that struggle that it takes for us to really heal ourselves. And by healing ourselves, I don't think that healing yourself, you have a great measure of how far you've come if you don't do it with other people. I think the test is when you're around other people. Yeah. Because you can feel, you don't have to use any emotional type of skill set at all, which emotional, spiritual, and even intellectual. See, to me, again, I don't disconnect none of it. Spiritual, intellect, emotional and intellectual are all spiritual. So again, all those have to work in balance, which is also Mayat. So it was another question you had. You had some great questions. It was some very profound. You had another one?
I wrote them down.
Yeah.
Maybe what will it take for us to move as one body? Something like that.
So yeah,
Or are people always part of one body?
so what would it take for us to move as one body? And it sounds like I almost hear you through the mic, but it's not coming to the mic. But what? But I heard him. So what would it take? It'd take all these things that we're talking about. I truly think that, again, I think the mama said earlier, and the mama said, and the mama said, and the brother said, all people are saying, like, again, starting with what I started with, it's like we really have to go back to this idea of Kuji Chakalia. We have to go back to this idea of as we started out today, like we have to understand it is essential that we define and create for ourselves. In other words, we have to recreate, rewire the things that we believe about one another. If we really want to be true and we really want to heal collectively, we don't trust one another. And it's okay because we have reason not to trust one another. Because we've been hurt in the society. And then when you've been hurt in society, they have us fighting each other or hurting one another. But we have to, again, heal. We're not going to do anything collectively if we don't heal. And then we also got to know that everything we do, there's opposition out there. So even as Mama and Danu spoke about earlier, we're trying to find ways to combat this system that is oppressing us.
I think we have to remember too that a major word in there is determination. We have to be determined to do it. We can't just say we want to do it or, decide. We have to be determined.
We have to be determined. And in that determination, I think it's essential to note that the enemy, if you want to use those words, the opposition will test it. As we know, we've created all types of collectives, and these collectives have been tested. And it will have you asking questions about yourselves. Did we do all this for nothing? All types of things, because it's kind of like they didn't only bomb Tulsa, Oklahoma. They take bombs at communities like this in the community that Mama and Danu spoke about every day. So it's even the transmission of knowledge is difficult. And even us, we will tear apart these very type of ideas and frameworks because we feel oppressed, we feel betrayed, we feel we feel like our African brothers and sisters have not come for us, but we too don't really see how they've been duped. And it takes one, again, it goes back to my earlier conversation when we say that they not doing the work, I'm the only one doing the work. But that's not even a reality. And in fact, if you do the work, go ahead, Brother Los.
Oh, can you
Yeah.
check?
You look like you got it.
No, I was on that. I had something on my mind that everybody in it was talking about, and we was talking about self-determination, and I in my mind something went to being connected to the original way things were, the original way of being, and something as simple as just the word producer. We produce civilizations. We produce thought. We've gotten away from being proud of being those things or proud of coming up with those things because we've been indoctrinated into being what we call the enemy, consumer. So we consume their thoughts. We consume whatever they feel like. We feel like we have to be a part of it because we have to consume that way of being. And I think when we think about self-determination, we think about African spirituality, we think about being leaders, and we think about living in Maya. It's about being what we always were historically. Like historically, we produced, we created, and we didn't feel threatened by what others thought. Like we even before it was tribes, before it was boundaries in Africa, people lived how they lived, and they had no shame in that. They lived according to my, they lived according to our natures. Whatever was presented, they used, they created. But we have been caught up in this psychological thing where we've been talking about it for weeks. Like, it's just made up stuff. It's like made up stuff. And it's always made up to like make you feel good if you go along with it, or make you feel horrible if you don't. So when you think about it, like, you know, if you could go into a whole different circle, it's Sunday, we can go down the street to a church and talk about this same thing. And someone will stop us and say, you brother, you going to hell. And if you accept that, then you accept it, you're consuming an idea that's not the truth. It's just, it's something that's just made up, and you're going away from what the original way of thinking. And those people who are targeting you with these other thoughts, me and Dr. Saar had a conversation about it. Sometimes I believe they do but know that they're doing this, you know, and sometimes they don't. But I think it's a tool and a weapon that we have to counter against. Like that enemy that we say in that opposition, we actually have to say, we are thinkers, we are doers, we are creators, and we don't have to consume the idea that this is right, and what we think and how we live and what we create, how we worship, whatever is wrong. We just don't have to do that.
Yeah, you know, the reason why I challenge the idea in a simplistic way of whether or not they, meaning I think in this case white people, know exactly what they're doing or not. Of course, there's people who know exactly what they're doing, but they aren't even the scary folk. You kind of know them and see them. But are those that's next to you that think they're helping? Because the white supremacy is all throughout them, or the idea of white supremacy is all throughout them, they will hurt you. And the reason why I can even say that is because the idea is within us. And that's what we have to rid ourselves of. Because we even do the same thing and many times think we're doing the best. Because fear will even have you doing things that are counterproductive to us. We like, for example, going back to this verse, like we think about even what's going on right now. Again, we should not be surprised about what's going on right now, unless we have not been listening to our modern day prophets. And I'm going to say our modern day prophets. I'm talking about African American, African diasporic prophets. If you have not been listening to the Welsings of the world, if you have not been listening to the Amos Wilsons of the world, when you think that somehow within this system that they're doing something that really gives you some power, something about that is diluted, because that's the easy way of thinking. But when you really listen to our prophets, you would not be surprised when you listen to the prophets of like a Dr. Marimba Ani. When you listen to the John Henrik Clarks, they never told us that what we've gotten received as a result of the 60s and 70s or what have you was liberation. And in fact, they still controlled it. When they give you a space in their house, understand who the boss is. See, we are okay with having space in their house. That is not African sovereignty. It's okay. It helps us be comfortable. But you know, when when you're the dad and the mom in the house and the child does things that we don't want, at some point they come together and say, oh, we gotta give them the mother-in-law suite, the father-in-law suite, or some suite, or get them out. Well, we're gonna have to change these rules up because they think they the father now. They think they the mother now. They think so. The reality is you will never be liberated in someone else's house until we come to some agreement of power that says that, oh no, this is our house too, just as much as your house. We gotta do some things differently. You know what I mean? I go. Go ahead.
So something keeps coming up in a variety of different ways, and I wanted to know your thoughts on it. This idea that well, I guess I'm almost saying it like I'm posing, like I'm leading the question. So I'm just gonna say the thing. I think that we romanticize the past too much to some extent, because there's like, you know, I think about how I was sitting in the dining room with my grandfather and my father, and my father was talking about how young guys, they have their pants down to their butt, and you know, my grandfather kind of laughed and he said, "You mean the same way I used to disown you because you had that afro?" You know, it was like, it was different, but it was the same, you know. And I think in a lot of ways, a lot of the things that happened in the past are happening currently, and a lot of things that are happening currently have happened in the past. And I think that it's important to like really process the new way in which it's happening, opposed to romanticizing the past, because I think it's easy to say, oh, well, you know, we used to have this and it used to be like that, and the African village used to be like this. But I mean, that's truth there, but also it's not so different than now, and it was created then the same way it could be created now, or put forward now as it was then. And I just think about this one book that I was reading called The Rational Optimist, and the whole concept of the book, and just very quickly, the whole concept of the book was that this idea that it was better in the past is like, you know, it's not actually true. I think currently, even in lower class societies or middle class societies, you may live better right now than a king or queen may have lived 200, 300 years ago. If you think about the access to basic necessities and food and shelter, and it may not be up to the standard that you may want to up to modern times. But if you really take into perspective that a lot of the resources we have, the access to information, that like we are, in many ways, we have a lot more than we've ever had. It does not mean we don't have work to do. It just means that like there is no time like right now. And I think it's important not to be my last point, not to be reactive to the make America great again, that we let the pendulum swing too far the other direction and we do our own version of that. Like, we shouldn't be going back to the past. We should be moving forward, is kind of how I'm really thinking. And that's more of my thoughts. I'm open to interpretation.
So yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I do understand that. But there are some differences, and material differences are just a part of it, right? But there's some similarities that are, or even some things where things have devolved. When we look at, there are some real realities that are statistically quantifiable. And that's why I say we got to use all of our minds. You know, and I get, so sometimes those are even right-wing talking points. And I get it. We don't really mean it that way because we just want to see us do better. The reality of our financial status as a group of people in African people, Black people in America has not, it is actually declining. The situation, the state of our families and relationships and mothers and fathers and children and connectivity has declined. So you can gain a good job for a few people, but that also in turn, if it breaks down the community and our collective cooperation or our collective desire for liberation or our collective whatever, it also weakens. So it seems like we get things, but we don't look at the devastation that it causes on the other end. Now, there is some truth to medicine has made advancement. You know, there's some truth that lots of things. But overall, psychologically, we are doing much worse off than people in many ways. because the way that things are going right now. People feel like they have no purpose right now. We are in a space where we have paychecks, but we lack purpose. We are in a place right now where we don't know what we're supposed to do with ourselves. See, the thing is, we talk about not wanting we talk about flexibility, and that's essential. But the reality is we're so flexible that nobody has any culture. Culture there's no, you can't even define things anymore because everything is a social construct. So let's make like nothing's real. That's what is being said. But the reality is there's nothing wrong with social constructs. It's how they've been used and weaponized against people. There's nothing wrong with gender. It's how it's been used and abused. There's nothing wrong with gender roles. There's nothing wrong with any of these things. It's how they've been weaponized against people. So to some degree, we don't know what to do. We have young men and women out here right now, and I counsel them, and they don't know what to do with their lives. They don't even know how to get a partner anymore. They don't know how to get a mate anymore. They don't know how to keep a significant other. Social media and the way that we're like, anyway, there are things that has improved. But in reality, you got to be careful what looks like improvement because there's a cost that someone is paying if we're not carefully observant of the entire community and what's really going on. I've lived in Baltimore, I lived in Baltimore my whole life. And I'm not saying I haven't been out of Baltimore, but I've lived here. And there's things that, and I get it, I agree. Sometimes I think we are an illusion, those of us that are, like my homeboys, they be like, yeah, them little NIGG. If I hear somebody say YN one more time, like, why, or what, like you were doing so much better. I mean, I went to school with you. I lived in the neighborhood with you. What you mean they don't know how to fight? You didn't know how to fight. You was carrying a tote. You was toting. You were doing that. So what I'm saying is, but at the end of the day, I agree with what you're saying holistically when you say that, like some people say is one of my one of my elders, academic, Dr. Marion Stanton, she says the good old days never existed. And so there's some truth there. Because what happens is we tend to look back and we remember the good times. And it's okay to do that. But the problem is this, and I heard the dear mama say earlier, and I heard the other dear mama say earlier, that it's essential that we're mindful about what is actually going on now. Whether if you want to use the word good or bad, it is essential to understand what's going on right now. Because we can look at what happened in the past, but we rob ourselves of the now. And then what that does for us is open up room for depression. Mike.
Is this one on?
Yes.
Okay. I so appreciate what you're saying. And as you were talking, I was thinking of a caveat between these two, that when you learn from the past, not idolize it, but learn from the past, then you have like a record to go. My prayer every day is I don't have to experience everything. Let the divine know. I can say, woo, I can learn from that because I know that I don't need to repeat that. And I think and feel that people idolize the past because they're fearful of, I don't have anything to do now. When we spend too much focus on, the past was now, so there's really nothing to do now. Or, the enemy is doing X, Y, and Z. It's really because I don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. So I want to spend all of this energy and time describing all these things that were done because I'm scared. What if I spend space on what I can create, what can we create, there's nothing there. And
Mm.
that is a fear that's been injected,
Mhm.
you know? And so part of looking at the past is learning from it. And as we were talking earlier, I was thinking accountability, accountability, accountability. When we decide and constantly refine, we can't just do it and stay. What we
Mhm.
believe, so like the community you were talking about, all right, so what happens when what we've agreed upon hasn't been met? And with loving concern, we can have accountability. Yeah, that's not what we said. So what
Yeah.
we said was going to happen when you don't do your part, we have to hold ourselves and each other accountable.
Mm.
I grew up in a household and a family that it was like, oh, you know, we don't talk in front of outsiders, or we don't air our dirty laundry, right? And that was for my family, but also us as a community.
Mhm.
So even though Pastor Jenkins, he's not right, we're not going to talk about it because we don't want to tear this black man down or this sister down, instead of finding some accountability and saying, oh, no. But what we agreed on is pastors don't move like that. What we agreed upon is, I don't know, mamas or doctors or whoever, or the grocer doesn't move like that. And we're stumbling and fumbling for that right now. What you were saying earlier, brother doctor, and you said you didn't want to go down that path. I've noticed that there's a lot of clickbait for black men and women to be online talking about what's wrong with the other sex, and that's all there is. And they'll make statements like black men or black women instead of, and I keep, when it comes across, I keep saying, why can't we talk about the behavior? When somebody comes in a relationship saying, what can you buy me or do for me? That's a problem. Instead of demonizing, well, these modern women or black women or these men, instead of just talking about the behavior or the outcome, I'm really questioning, why are we doing that? And so for my part, I'm injecting that in my conversations and my consciousness. Like, what did we agree on? What did we say at our workplace? What did I say in my household? What did I say in my community? And make sure that I live up to it and be ready to be held accountable, and then be ready to be uncomfortable if I'm part of holding others accountable. So.
That's it. So, out of a book that we read in the Rites of Passage is The Falsifications of African Consciousness. Dr. Amos Wilson has, I guess, I don't know, it looks like somewhat of a poem here. It says, what is the past? Where is the past? Is it nothing which it was something? Is it something left behind, discarded, detached, forgotten, without influence and therefore of no account? Does it or can it exist outside the mind and memory of man? Or is it not present in our genes, where we carry the evolutionary existence of our kind? Are we not there in the present, unfolding its evolvement and manifestation? Or is it not congealed in concrete and mortar, stone and steel structures, and folkways, traditions, mores, and ways of relating? Is it not still present in its negation, its reconstitution, when it is transformed into something new? Is history ever forgotten, or is it merely transformed? Even in the new, history still remains, for the new is fashioned from the old. Therefore, what is now is fashioned from before. Hence, we never leave history behind. Isn't the new then something old? History, conscious or unconscious, comprehended or uncomprehended, never ceases to be. It is only transformed. As transformation, history is always here and now. Here today, there tomorrow. History is past, present, and future. History is destiny. If we will to transform destiny, we must will to transform history.
Ashe.
So, oh wow, we are about that time, y'all.
It was a great discussion.
All right, appreciate the discussion. You wanted to say something else about that? So going back, just in closing, just to I kind of think though in this, I think I saw some things that kind of also spoke to some of the questions. It says, if you are a leader and command many, strive for excellence in all you do, so that no fault can be found in your character. I think when I read this, I think to various levels, especially in our community, we often say we all leaders. So I think this is applicable to all of us. For Mayat, the way of truth, justice, and righteousness is great. Let me go back though. If you are a leader and command many, strive for excellence in all that you do, so that no fault can be found in your character. I think that sometimes we don't think we downplay that, and what we do is we allow people in our spaces and in our minds who we don't hold to that level of accountability. So when I say, well, homeboy's actions ain't acting up with his theology. Oh, well, everybody human and we all have faults. That's like a knack. And why are you trying to pull the black man down? No, I'm trying to lift them up. See, we naturally have been so hurt that we can't even hold each other accountable because we think that somehow someone who's made it to a certain point, we need that image rather than the reality of what's going on with inside of them. We just we need the image. The image is enough. And the image is not enough.
And we've been told we've been not great. So we don't accept greatness. We've been told we're not great. So we accept that level. So we don't see that greatness in people. We just say, oh, if you see the greatness in people, then and you wanted them to exude that greatness, then you're bringing them down because people have accepted the fact that they can just be regular. You know
right.
what I mean?
And you know what else? To lean towards that more. As a young man, I said, you know what? When I read the Hosea, I said, I'm going to strive to live by these principles, right? And the more you strive to do it, the more people begin to question you. Because it's very uneasy when we see people act civilized. It's uneasy for us. It's very uneasy when you have people before you that ain't doing things, who talking somewhere closer, they're walking closer to their talk. We'd rather deal with people who walk is nowhere near their talk. Because somewhere in there, it helps me feel comfortable about the things I don't want to change in me.
Yeah.
And when you see those who walk closer, it makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I hear it even in relationships. I hear sisters mainly often say, you know what? Yeah, he has potential. But then when they find a man or whomever that they see as have his stuff together, they become afraid. And vice versa for brothers. And they don't ever speak it out, but you can see it. That person got their stuff together, so I don't feel adequate. It is a mirror to me. And in fact, I don't think I'm good enough. And I will be able to live up to that. So African cosmology says, if you are a leader and command many, I would change that to say, if you command your children, strive for excellence in all that you do, so that no fault. And guess what? We can say, you can tweak this because Kujichaga Liz says we can define for ourselves for the times that we find ourselves in. I want you to know you have the authority to do that. No sacred, there's no greater sages than you. We talk that talk, but we don't really believe it. If you really believed it, we won't have the questions that we have. And you won't question somebody who says they have the authority to change a thing for our time. If you are a leader and command many, strive for excellence is what our African cosmology says. In all you do, so that no fault can be found in your character. That's a lot of work, ain't it?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean not to do it. For Mayat, the way of truth, justice, and righteousness is great. And I like to say this again, I'm going back. We say, so if we put down these Eurocentric models, what models do we have? I said, we got a lot of models. And I think what Brother Ferd was saying earlier is there is a essence that is collective across African spiritual systems that make them very similar. So whether or not culturally there's cultural nuance, there's also at its core is very African, humanistic in an African way. So the way of truth, justice, and righteousness is great. Its value is lasting, and it has remained unequal and unchanged since the time of the Creator. So truth, justice, and righteousness is, and excellence is what we should strive for. And no one should, there should be no quarrel with that. In our walk, we should walk Mayat, talk Mayat, which means truth, justice, balance, harmony, reciprocity, order. And it go again, we should walk in a way where your brother and sister doesn't have to think about being an individual. And what I mean by that, we should walk in a way that we know we have each other's back.
Ashe.
I had some dental work this week, so pardon my pronunciation. I'll try to put an S in that word. Backs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So it is great. Its value is lasting, and it has remained unequal and unchanged since the beginning of the time of its creator. It lies as a plain path before even the ignorant, and those who violate its laws are punished. And that is what we're saying. So in today's time, that means that, so in Njia, the framework that I've created, what that means is that if you are not in step with Mayat, if you're not in step with those principles of the Nguzo Saba, if you're not in step with those principles of family and community, then you will be punished. I'm not talking about no what's the word, y'all? Esoterical type of, thank you, consequence. I'm talking about right here. Why am I struggling so much? Because I've bought into frameworks that don't work for me. I bought into frameworks, and it's not saying that there's not an oppressor, but when you buy into his or hers or their frameworks and their ideas of materialism, it's not to say you shouldn't have a thing, but when you're in that, what Bob Marley called the rat race, you will never be satisfied. Prophet, I might have to give some people some other names, sages and prophets. I'm saying, I'm being real honest, like define for ourselves. Why do you have to use sages and prophets from books that you don't even know, the names don't even sound right to you? Why can't Peter Tosh be a prophet? Why can't Mama and Danu be a sage? Because we are taught that everybody else is and we can't be. And something mythical has to be that. Why can't Marcus Mosiah Garvey actually be a Messiah? You know, it lies as a plain path before the ignorant. We closed on today. So it lies as a plain path before even the ignorant, and those who violate its laws are punished. So again, those who don't live in accord with our values, our culture, and with that, what is that? Collective, communal, familial, whatever. What other words?
Community.
Yeah, that's communal. Although wickedness may gain wealth, wrong, and see, that's who we lift up. Like, we love the dope. I'm not saying that we can have space in a heart for our dope dealers or dope dealers, because we understand how they got caught up. But somehow, even when they stop, their story becomes more profound than those who've been walking the path the entire time.
Sure.
And then the same with people who did all the who checked all the Eurocentric boxes, and somehow they find themselves on NBC. You somehow give them more credit than those who are in our community, who are struggling and speaking things would never allow them on NBC. Somehow in our minds, although we don't want to admit it, they have more credibility. People have more credibility because they've made it there. And somehow, or we went to their institutions that they ordained. Somehow, because you went to a Harvard, it makes you better. And we believe that. Somehow, because you went to a PWI, it makes you better. I really want y'all to sit down and talk to some people who went to them.
You'd be surprised.
And somehow, when they've been sanctioned by them, or they made it to those platforms, we somehow respect them more. Even in the African Senate communities, we will acknowledge a pastor who has large congregations for feeding people poison because the size of the congregation. So somehow that has to be more relevant. But even in your own book, it talks about the middle path, you know what I mean? Or a path to few. But somehow you have not internalized or embodied the very lessons that you say you live by. So again, I say I look at things with clarity. So how would you espouse or what you say your values are, how are they manifesting in your life? How are they manifesting in your life with your family? To me, if you are struggling in those areas, I'm not saying there's no level of struggle, but if you are struggling and sinking continuously, it warrants some review.
Sure.
So although wickedness may gain wealth, wrongdoing has never brought its wares to a safe port. So as we continue to do the things that we know aren't healthy for us, understand they'll never get us where we want to go. In the end, it is Mayat, the way of truth, justice, and righteousness, that endures and enables the upright to say, it is the legacy of my father and mother. So with that, family, we'll close out by saying, we walk in Mayat with balance, truth, and divine alignment. We rise in discipline. We heal with courage. We give our gifts to the community. Ancestors walk with us.
Spirit guide us.
And divine guide us. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe-o. You gotta have a mic, man.
I was just saying, can we take just a moment to send up some positive vibes for our brother Canel and Abu Jamal?
Yes.
Both of them are dealing with health issues, and we want to lift them up, as well as Mama Faluke and Mama Ndanu too. Sante Sala.
I see.
This has been a wonderful Circle of Maya. I wanted to finish off with 7 Harambes, as we normally do. We brought in the Harambes earlier, and I'm already loving the energy. If we can stand. Black fist in the air. All right. 7 Harambes. Harambe, 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 Harambe. Peace and love.
Exodus. Movement of the people. Oh yeah. I'm not to tell you this. Men and people will fight you down. Tell me why. When you see John Light. Let me tell you, if you're not wrong, then why? Everything is alright. So we're gonna walk alright through the roads of creation.